Have you ever wondered why, after every fall, a strange force awakens within us that doesn't let us stay down? It's like an invisible spring that pushes us upwards again. Well, this isn't just a poetic feeling. There's a whole lot of science and psychology behind this called resilience. Resilience is precisely our ability to not only avoid giving up and collapsing after a tough experience, an emotional shock like a love failure, or any challenge life throws our way, but to rise stronger and more mature than before. Imagine a tree in a strong wind. Its branches might bend, its leaves might fall, but its main trunk remains steadfast, and after the storm it sprouts again. We humans are more or less the same way. From a scientific perspective, when we face a setback, our brain kind of goes into alert mode. Stress hormones are released, our heart rate increases, and we experience a series of physical and emotional reactions. But the interesting thing is that this very stress and challenge, if not too prolonged and overwhelming, can be a kind of training for our nervous system. Just like exercising, where we feel muscle pain at first but gradually get stronger, facing small and large failures can increase our psychological capacity to cope with future difficulties. Psychologists have shown that people with higher resilience usually share several common characteristics. Positive outlook. These people find a glimmer of hope even in the darkest of times, and instead of focusing on the negative aspects, they try to see the hidden lessons and opportunities in that experience. Self-awareness. They know their feelings, weaknesses, and strengths well, and they know how to empathize with themselves. Problem-solving skills. Instead of getting bogged down in negative emotions, these individuals actively look for solutions and strive to overcome the problem. Strong support network. Having friends and family who stand by you in tough times is like a psychological safety net that helps a lot. Imagine the moment when the news of a relationship ending lands on your soul like a heavy hammer. What do you feel? Probably a mix of sadness, anger, despair, confusion, and a deep sense of emptiness. This isn't just a simple emotional reaction, it's a real storm brewing in our brain and nervous system. Studies have shown that when we lose a deep attachment, the same areas of our brain are activated as when we experience physical pain. That's why they say, "My heart broke." And it really does evoke a physical ache. The secretion of stress hormones like cortisol peaks, and the levels of feel-good hormones like dopamine and serotonin plummet. These chemical changes in the brain cause us to experience restlessness, anxiety, and even depression. On the other hand, a love failure is also a major loss. We not only lose an important person in our lives, but also a series of dreams, plans, and the image we had of our future is shattered. This loss triggers the grief mechanisms in our brain, the same stages we go through when we lose loved ones: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally, acceptance. It might seem like this is all bad news, but this very inner turmoil can be a golden opportunity to get to know the deepest layers of our being. When all external supports crumble, we are forced to look within ourselves. Questions like, who am I? Logically, what is truly important to me? Zrenia, what am I looking for in a healthy relationship? Are raised more seriously in our minds. This is where neuroscience and psychology join hands to tell us that the human brain is a remarkably flexible organ. This property is called neuroplasticity. It means our brain can adapt to new experiences and even build new structures. Love failure, with all its pain, can be a catalyst for this very inner change and transformation. When we face our painful emotions, allow them to surface, and then gradually subside, we are actually helping our brain build new neural pathways. We learn how to cope with loss, how to manage our emotions, and how to stand on our own 2 feet again. In other words, a love failure is like an earthquake that shakes the foundation of our lives. Everything might seem ruined at first, but this very destruction can be an opportunity to build a stronger and more durable structure with a deeper understanding of ourselves and our true needs. Have you ever wondered why, after a love failure, your perspective on relationships gradually changes? It's as if a fundamental reboot is happening in your mental operating system. Well, this isn't a random feeling. It's rooted in the complex functioning of our brain. When we experience a romantic relationship, our brain forms specific neural circuits for that person and that connection. These circuits are intertwined with positive emotions, sweet memories, and our expectations. Now, when this relationship ends, these circuits don't just switch off. Rather, a state of imbalance arises. The brain tries to process this disconnection, much like when we break an old habit. Research has shown that during the period after a breakup, activity increases in brain regions associated with emotional pain, longing, and craving. This is why we feel nostalgic. Revisiting memories hurts, and we experience a sense of need for that person. But the amazing thing is that these very neural activities also lay the groundwork for a fundamental change. Our brain naturally tends towards creating order and balance. When an old relationship fades, the brain begins to rebuild neural circuits. This rebuilding not only involves the fading of memories and emotions related to the previous relationship, but also provides an opportunity for the formation of new circuits with different attitudes and priorities. In other words, a love failure can act like a restart for the brain's communication system. We gradually learn to identify unhealthy communication patterns from the past and avoid them in future relationships. The painful experience of loss makes us appreciate the value of healthy and mature connections more, and we become more careful in our subsequent choices. From an evolutionary perspective, we can also look at this. Failure in past relationships is a kind of learning experience for the brain. Our brain learns what types of behaviors cause distress and separation and subconsciously tries to avoid them in future relationships. This is a survival mechanism to maintain mental well-being and find a more suitable mate. So don't just see a love failure as a bad event. Look at it as a chrysalis of transformation. While going through this period can be tough, eventually this chrysalis opens and you emerge as a more experienced, aware, and ready individual for a deeper and more lasting love. Your brain is preparing itself for a more evolved connection. Trust this process.